day back down at riding. It was a cooler day, still a fair bit of smoke around, but the fire services and everybody did a town meeting down in Springwood last night, which they live streamed on Facebook. So we watched that last night. They gave updates and were talking about the work that they were doing with this fire, and the conditions haven't been conducive now to backburning, which is a good and a bad thing, because we'd like them to have fire breaks in place, but every time, not every time, but there's been a number of times in this fire season that the fire brigade have been doing some backburning to try and protect property, and the wind has changed on them and they've lost control of it. And that's what happened at the back of our place. They were doing that and they got a strong southerly come through and they lost control of the fire, and it started spotting forward and got closer to the houses. And there was one over the north side of the mountains where it was similar, where they were doing a backburn to protect property. Wind changed and that turned into a bigger fire, which caused the loss of some houses. So it's always dicey, it's always a bit of a concern. So they're doing a lot of manual fire breaks, where they're getting in there with hand tools, probably power tools, chainsaws, some heavy loaders and that sort of stuff where they can, to try and create some breaks. And then they released a statement about the 3 fires that are in the mountains and their status and progress and that sort of stuff. That put a little bit of relief in the minds of both myself and my wife, because today is a low to moderate fire risk day. It's again quite cool, high moisture in the air. It's a bit misty this morning. No rain forecast, so to speak, but there was none of the lightning that was forecast for yesterday occurred, so that was good. Actually, our Woodford Fire Brigade had put on their Facebook page a couple of photos of a tree that they found that had been struck by lightning, and it was burning from the inside out. So you couldn't actually see a tree on fire, but they saw some smoke, and when they went and found this tree, it had fallen and it was all burning on the inside, and there was just this one split down the side of it. And so even though it was raining, the rain wasn't being able to do anything for that tree, and they had to basically split the tree apart to completely douse it. We were meant to go to storage last night. I hadn't realised that my wife wanted me to arrange the late entry, and I missed the cut-off time. So I got things ready to go into storage, and they're in the car now. And so I'm going to drive down to Penrith, put the stuff in storage, and then I'm going to catch the train into the city from Penrith for our back-to-back days of riding. And I've let my supervisor, my chief examiner, know. He's just said, okay, we'll see you when I get here. I'm only going to be a little bit late. It means that I'm going to have to remember to get off the train at Penrith this afternoon. Concerns me a little bit, because on the way back to the house yesterday, I fell asleep on the train, completely missed Penrith. I woke up and we were already heading up the mountains. I was like, whoops, I better not fall asleep this afternoon and completely miss Penrith. That's a bit of an update on yesterday and what's kind of happening today. I really hope we get some really heavy rain, but I doubt we're going to. Tomorrow is actually meant to be a bit warmer again, but thankfully I will be at the house. We've actually got somebody to come look at our air conditioning that we had installed in the lounge room, because it hasn't seemed to be cooling consistently, so I think there might be a slow leak in the system. Wait and see. So I was just out the front here, so I was hearing a knocking sound in my front wheels on the Suzuki. I thought it was always the trailer noise on the tow bar, but I just chucked up either side of the Suzuki, and passenger side front hub seems a bit loose, which is a bit annoying since it's just had its bearings replaced 8,500 k's ago. No, sorry, 13,500 k's ago. And then 8,500 k's ago they checked on them and tightened them because they basically were wearing in. And I've got a feeling they still had a bit more wear to go, so I've got to get the Suzuki into the mechanics next week when they reopen because of a lot of oil that's been leaking in it. I'm going to get them to check that as well. While I was out here, fire and rescue truck came down and I noticed them just turning around. I thought they might have been looking for the hydrants, and we've got one right in front of our house. And I went up and said hi to one of the guys and just asked if that's what they were doing, and he said, no, we're just down from Queensland and we're getting a tour of the area just in case anything happens, so they know the lay of the land. So they're preparing, and I can't see any unusual smoke, but we are expected to have a strong southwesterly change this afternoon. So we'll see what happens with all that. This is still the northwesterly, which is quite hot. 6:30 Friday arvo. Just came out to have a bit of a look around. Because of the wetting down and the rain that we've had, I've had a lot of grass pop up through the dirt. Well, the grass is a lot greener. I can hear helicopters in the distance. I'm starting to smell smoke, which I wasn't smelling earlier today. I can kind of see a little bit from the fire trail that's over that way. The one that worries me the most though is that direction. Even though there's a lot of houses that it has to come over from that way, that's where there seems to be some hot spots that have shown up on the map. I don't know whether that's them back burning or whether that's spot fires from that over there, but that direction there is southwest, and that's where they're expecting the wind change to be, from the southwest, and unpredictable winds, so that could blow this way. But while I'm out here, I'll actually have to turn the camera around because I've spotted a big blue tongue in the yard. He looks cute. There he is, right there. Been kicking back and sunning out here. Here's a better look at him. He's eyeballing me. He's about a foot long. Did you come across from next door, mate? Kicking back in some open sunshine area. I think he's not sure what to make of me. Who's this big bloke coming over and just talking to me? You'll be right, mate. Just watch out for that pigeon, eh? It's been poking around the yard. And the magpies. If you can hear that helicopter, I could just see it through the trees, and it looked like it was just a scouting copter, the sort of ones that fly around just to check stuff out. That wind's picking up. Yeah. You might have caught it. I get worried when I see the water bombing ones because it means something's gone wrong. So he's just done a loop up along the fire trails. Keep an eye on it. How you doing, little fella? Just after 2 AM, you might be able to hear the laundry dryer. I've basically kept myself awake. Decided to try and go over a video that had really bad sound, subtitling it. Smoke's a lot thicker in the air, and the forecast was that the strong southerly change was going to come through basically between Nowra and Sydney mountains and that sort of stuff, between 12 and 2. Now, it feels pretty still out here, but the wind has obviously changed a bit if it's bringing the smoke from the south west up here. I just wanted to keep an eye on it. Because it does smell a lot thicker. Almost looks like it's overcast, but I know it's not. I'll wait for that dryer to finish and maybe get some sleep. Just come up the shops to get a few things today. It's pleasantly cooler than it has been. It's see the ground. We did get quite a bit of rain overnight, so much so that it looks like it's actually washed some rocks down here in the car park. But yeah, so it's a bit cooler. There's been enough rain to leave the ground wet around the car parks and that sort of thing. I know the grass and everything was quite damp out the front of the house, and we're apparently supposed to get maybe almost a week of cooler conditions, so that cold, the southwesterly change that came through last night wasn't quite as vicious where we were, it seems, and hopefully the fireys can get on top of what's happening in all the fire areas and extinguish them if possible. They said there was only one new fire that started up somewhere in the state, which was a lightning strike one as well, but we'll see how things go. Can you hear that knocking sound? Kind of a rattling coming from the front of the car. I do think that the passenger side bearing has become loose because there was a lot of play when I jacked it up. A lot of play in the left hand side wheel. Right hand side wasn't so bad. I don't think I want to wait till I get to the garage to actually do something about this, because I don't know if I'm going to get in. They don't open till Monday. And I'm actually going in for some surgery on Monday, which means I'm not going to be able to do anything Tuesday either. So, like, if I give them a call and try to book it in, they may not be able to get it in before Wednesday anyway, or I might not be able to get it down there before Wednesday. See if it makes a noise as I'm taking it off here. Every bump's causing a knocking sound. The suspension is being allowed to flex too much. All of the other connections, like all of those bolts, seem nice and tight. I know that my front wheels have hub covers come through the rim, so I might be able to actually tighten it up without having to remove the whole wheel. I'd have to jack it up, but I might not have to remove the whole wheel. So after I get back to the house, I think I'm going to check that. Because at first Like, I've been driving with this knocking sound for most of the time I've been taking all of that stuff up to the tip, because I thought it was the trailer making a knock. Like, my tow ball is one of those ones that float into a socket, and so it rattles a bit and makes a bit of noise. It's actually the bearing. Hear it? I hope this is coming through, because it's loud enough to be concerning when I've got no other sound in the car. I don't want that to become a major issue. They're just being replaced. And if I've got the issue with the oil leak, that'll do. Just one thing wrong with the car will do. So I've got my hub cover off, got the little center cap off. That is still, I thought there'd just be a nut there, but then I remembered it's a whole hub assembly. That's still too much play in that. I'm going to need to take that off. Okay, so once you get everything off, this is the hub bearing. I'm not feeling any play in that at all. There is in the drive shaft though. I shouldn't have that sort of play there. I wouldn't think. There's a bit of movement in the drive shaft, but there's no play in the bearing. Bearing seems nice and tight. It might be a bit off, I might not have the right measurement tools, but attaching this to it, this is what
This is what locks the hub to the drive shaft. So that in effect locks it to the drive shaft. Cap's gotten a little bit bent up. Until those bends were already there. So it happened with the mechanics. Only go on. Tap that out a bit. That looks better. Let's go over that. Everything's a hammer. It's kind of funny when you think about it. I didn't need to take all of this off because I could get to it all is there. Never mind. And in reality, probably didn't have to take the whole wheel off either, because you could get to all of that without taking the rim off. Never mind. Odds on I'm going to put this wheel back on and it's still going to wobble. It was worth having a look. They'll have that much wobble. There's something else loose in there. I'm going to check the other one for argument's sake. Not the whole bearing and everything, but just whether there's a lot of movement there.
So after fiddling around with the front wheel, deciding that there's a little bit of play in that drive shaft, which obviously I think needs to be there, and there was no play in the bearing of it on its own. When I put the wheel back on, there was movement in there. So I checked the other side and there wasn't quite as much movement. So I popped the hood and had a bit of a look at the top of the shock absorber struts, thinking, oh, maybe they were a bit loose. And when I checked those, no, they weren't loose, but they seemed to be. I then ended up shaking the car and bouncing it and noticing that there was a lot more movement in the shock absorber of the passenger side than there was the driver's side. I ended up just grabbing the nudge bar of the car and rocking the car backwards and forwards, and there was way more movement in that passenger side. And so afterwards, close the bonnet, bounce the car a bit. When you bounce it, the car should basically stop. It'll shock absorb and then stop. Driver's side pretty much does that. Passenger side bounced again. So I think what's happened is that the rubbers in the internal system of the shock absorber have worn or deteriorated or whatever, and so instead of the bottom section and the top section remaining rigid, when it goes up and down, they actually flex at the center because the plunger's basically not being held in place. My theory anyway. I'm going to ask my mechanics, because the main thing I want them to have a look at is that suspected oil leak. There's a lot of oil under the car, it's an old car, and see if it's a major leak or whether I've got, because there's a lot there. And I'll ask them about the wheels. I'll ask them just to check how tight the bearings are. They've got all the equipment to do it properly, and just give me a rundown on the shock absorber situation. Not sure whether they do that sort of stuff or whether I'd have to go to a suspension specialist. So I'm now just running down to storage, organised, late entry again. Yeah, that's a bad shock absorber. It's messing with the handling of the Suzuki. Turning left is fine, but when I have to turn right, because the rigidity's gone out of the shock absorber, a quick run down to storage with a few more things that my wife wanted to put in there. There's some other stuff that she'd really like to put in, but it's just not ready. But I said, better put this in tonight, because tomorrow I've got to start my preparation for my surgery, which means I'm not going to be wanting to go around anywhere. And then I've got a surgery on Monday, and that's going to mean that Tuesday is out, probably Wednesday. I just didn't want that stuff just sort of sitting in the house and not being in storage.